Welcome back to the Illinois Coalition of Local Governments webinar series on the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. In our last video, we discussed how in order to be licensed to operate as a cannabis business establishment in the state of Illinois, you must show local zoning approval. This is a key issue for local units of government and will require action by most. This video will take a closer look at local control from zoning to individual possession, as well as the distribution of tax revenue between state and local governments. The Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, or the CRTA, created the framework for regulating and licensing recreational cannabis businesses by the state. However, it largely left local zoning authority to local units of government. It's important to note that municipalities cannot prohibit the individual use or possession of cannabis. However, it can prohibit business activities related to cannabis within its jurisdiction. Pursuant to such authority, municipalities can choose to prohibit those operations by opting out of the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, or by passing a local zoning ordinance to regulate the time, place, and manner those businesses can operate within their jurisdiction. Municipalities who decide to allow recreational cannabis business development within their jurisdiction will likely need to amend their zoning code to permit these businesses. Generally, these businesses are being regulated as a permitted or special use. However, the trend tends to be special use. Municipalities can regulate all aspects of zoning related to these businesses, including site location, exterior lighting, perimeter fencing, parking, etc. The only location requirement created by the state is a 1,500-foot setback requirement between an existing dispensary and a new dispensary. Likewise, there is a similar setback of 1,500 feet between a craft grower and another craft grower or a cultivation center. Municipalities are entitled to create their own additional setback based on the needs of their community. For example, some local units of government have created setbacks for sensitive areas such as parks, playgrounds, schools, libraries, etc. Municipalities may also regulate the on-premise consumption of cannabis business establishments. This is also known as social use facilities. However, there are concerns over if or when this social use will actually come to fruition, as there are currently limited insurance options for businesses that want to engage in such activities. Shifting away from local zoning, let's take a look at the tax structure. The state has imposed a 7% privilege tax on cultivation centers and a 10 to 25% excise tax on cannabis and cannabis products that are sold to consumers. The state separately authorized counties to impose a 3% tax in any municipality and a 3.75% tax in any unincorporated area. Similarly, local units of government are welcome to impose a municipal retail tax up to 3% on recreational sales at dispensaries. These taxes are also in addition to any local and state sales tax. Specific to local units of government, collection of the municipal retail tax imposed began on July 1st, 2020, but only where the municipality passed an ordinance adopting such a tax and filed that ordinance with the Department of Revenue by April 1st of 2020. But don't worry, if your municipality hasn't done that yet, you still can. The tax just won't be collected until July 1st of 2021. Overall, cannabis and cannabis products will see total taxes ranging from 40 to 45%. So what happens with all of this tax revenue? Well, the CRTA provides that the state agencies that are administering the act will receive resources to cover those administrative costs. Once those costs are subtracted from the revenue, all remaining revenue will be allocated, with 35% being transferred to the General Revenue Fund, 25% dedicated to community reinvestment, 20% towards mental health and substance abuse at local health departments, and 10% to pay the backlog of state unpaid bills, 8% to create a law enforcement grant program, and 2% to fund education and awareness. Recreational sales began on January 1st, 2020, and even though there was a shortage of cannabis products at that time, statewide sales were approximately $39 million in January, $35 million in February, and even continued at $35.9 million in March through the onset of the COVID-19 public health crisis. In the first 6 months of 2020, the state has received $52 million in sales tax revenue from recreational cannabis alone. Our next and final video in the webinar series will go over other provisions within the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, such as consumer protection, cannabis in the workplace, expungements, and effects on first responders. We hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. The Illinois Coalition of Local Government would like to thank Galdo Law Group for their assistance in producing this webinar series. For more information, please visit illinoislocalgov.org.